Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hi there. Welcome to the 82nd episode of A Couple Takes on MS. Hi, this is Dan Digman.
And hi, it's me, Jennifer Digman.
Thank you for joining us today. We're still reeling, and wow, just what a busy several weeks. But what we're talking about today is making sense of your messy MS life. And we really had, I don't want to call it a come to Jesus moment this last weekend, but just as far as like, what do you do? What can we all do just to keep our lives under control?
And that's a tall bill. I mean, we're sounding like we're going to make sense of this. And we're not exactly, because multiple sclerosis is a puzzle bigger than any of us. But I think this is our effort to make sense of our messy MS life.
Well, and I think, in terms of doing this, obviously we don't have every solution, every problem and stuff, but we are experts to a certain extent, in the sense that I've lived with the multiple sclerosis. See how did that made it the multiple sclerosis?
You owned that, Dan. Yes, you did.
For over 20 years, and you think about that with like daily dealings, living with the disease. I think there's some things I know a thing or two about, as do you.
I think yes. I hope that I do. I've lived with my multiple sclerosis. Good heavens, it'll be 22 years in November. And it's August right now, so almost half of my life. And so I think that I am an expert, and I hope that everybody out there living or listening to this show, whether you're living with multiple sclerosis or another chronic illness, I hope you own it and you know that you're the expert of your disease, because nobody has the same thing. We all have multiple sclerosis, but each case is individual.
And so with that, in dealing with and talking about making sense of your MS life, we don't have all the answers, but like Jennifer said, it's a puzzle. And so hopefully through talking about things today, when you're putting together jigsaw puzzles, the whole thing you want to start with the frame. You build the frame. So hopefully with this, we can give you some insights, just to ways to help you build that frame, so that you can fill in the blanks in the middle after you get the frame, dealing with this messy MS life.
Yeah, because it does get messy. I mean, just tell me, Dan, what were you doing a couple weeks ago?
Well, a couple weeks ago, we had had everything packed, ready to go, because we were down in Detroit on a Wednesday night 2 weeks ago. Yes. Because we had a whirlwind trip to New Jersey, and
we didn't see Bruce Springsteen.
And that killed me.
Anyone who knows Dan knows that he's not only got multiple sclerosis, but he's a humongous Bruce Springsteen fan.
And we didn't even get close to, I think we're 10 miles from Flemington, New Jersey, which is the hometown of E Street Band member Danny Federici, God rest his soul. But no, we didn't. So we were there. It was a whirlwind trip. We had estimated that we were in New Jersey for a total of 48 hours or 28 hours.
28
and of the
hours.
28 hours, we slept 4 of those hours, thereby then meaning that 24 of those hours was just intense activity.
And we're not bragging about that.
No, not bragging.
Because we don't advise behavior like that or encourage it. But one thing that my mom and I, if I can credit my mom, because this goes back to her and I, we always talked about, like with multiple sclerosis, there's a window of time for all of us living with MS, and we want to, as long as the window is open, we want to take advantage of it. And so when Dan and I had this opportunity for a whirlwind trip to New Jersey, we jumped at the chance. And that's why we were awake for 24 of 28 hours, because it was a whirlwind adventure.
And I think that's what we're looking at then, is how do you know when it's too much? When you're living with multiple sclerosis, I mean, because obviously we're all dealing with fatigue issues. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest symptoms of multiple sclerosis. How do you know when to stop? And I think then that leads up to this last weekend, that we didn't do something. We had gotten so tired that we were supposed to go down to your families in Flint for a family reunion on Saturday. Step back, you got sick, got a cold in New Jersey.
Yes, I did.
To which then you passed it on to me, and I started to get sick.
It's always nice to share.
And I appreciate that. But what happens then, and we've talked about this on this show before, is what happens when the MS caregiver gets sick. And I know when
that's when it's not nice to share.
No, it isn't. When I get sick, when I really get sick, I get sick bad. I hit it hard.
Yes.
And so we feared that, I mean, it's just like, at what point did we decide that this was the thing to do? Because these are questions to ask ourselves with MS all the time. It's just like, are we really that tired? Are we really that run down? Is it the disease? I mean, it's just a question of how do we know when it's the multiple sclerosis, when it's just natural things. That's the thing, is sometimes it's easy for me as a person living with MS to always blame the disease or say it's the MS and feel like I'm doing bad, I'm doing worse, whatever. But I think what those of us living with multiple sclerosis need to do is just take a step back and say, what we're dealing with or what we're doing, what you're doing on a daily basis. I mean, sometimes even the most healthiest of person not living with MS would be run down. So I think sometimes, are we harder on ourselves because of the disease, or does that make sense?
I think it does, but I think you and I both live with that feeling of we better do it while we can. And this opportunity to go to New Jersey was really good, and we were with some really incredible people, and it was fun, and we didn't want to slow down. I mean, we made the decision to have a drink in New Jersey. It was late, could have gone to sleep, but we were like, no, let's do this, let's make this memorable. And we surely thought at that time, we're going to pay for this, and we knew that. And I think anyone with half an ounce of brain in their head knows, yeah, I'm going to pay for this tomorrow. We didn't realize that one of us would get a really bad cold and pass it on, and then we would pay for it for like the week following our trip. And so when I got sick and gave it to you, and then you got sick, your body said, you know what, Dan, it's time to stop. And you had to listen to it. It made sense of your messy life for you. It was like, you know what, if you're not listening to me, I'm going to make you stop.
And we did, and I think that's the big thing, in terms of as we're talking about putting together the frame of this messy life with MS. The biggest thing, I think, almost like the corner pieces, is listen to your body.
Yes.
And that's
Listen to your body, or it's going to make you listen to it.
Yeah, you don't want to wait till your body's screaming at you. Your body just wants to say like, okay, Dan, it's time to stop. So what we ended up doing, I mean, because there was the notion, we sat there Saturday morning thinking we could do this, because I'm like, because it is always Saturday morning
was the
before
morning of
before
my
we went to the family reunion, went down to Flint, and that's about 2 hour drive down. But we were going to stay at your family's house, and we sleep in your mom's bed, and I didn't want to get your family sick because we saw how it was transferred between you and me.
Yes.
And so that was the fear, but then just thinking, what is that going to do to me? And would I run myself down? And I mean, I think I told you that I was at the precipice. I mean, I was congested, I was coughing a little bit, but you feel how that sickness sort of eases its way in. And I'm like, if we backed off, I think I could hold off anything major happening with this cold, this sickness. And so we didn't go.
And I suppose this is a point when it's good to be a caregiver. Often people think Dan is my caregiver because he's walking and I'm the one in the wheelchair, but this day, this family reunion Saturday, it was my opportunity to be Dan's caregiver because he was good in the morning, but I told him, we're going to have to get all cleaned up, and then you're going to have the drive, and you're going to have to transfer me, and you're already not feeling good. Is this going to be too much? And he was very honest with me that, yeah, it probably will. It will be too much. And so we said, love you parents, but we're not going to be down for the family reunion. And we put brakes on our weekend plans.
And we truly did nothing. And it's just in that listening to your body. And I mean, so we did. I mean, we could have done laundry. We could have cleaned the house. We could have blogged, written, whatever, done a radio show.
We could have gone and sat outside because it was beautiful out. But Dan is congested and he's exhausted. And the last thing he needs to do is sit outside and get overheated. Or I know my husband, he would have started picking weeds around the house. Or he would have done something, but we turned on TV, ordered a pizza, which is not possibly the best dietary choice.
Well, and that makes that's where, in terms of looking and thinking about self-care, it's like, what are we doing? It's like self-preservation, and it's just the reality. We had no food in the house. I mean, we had
a minimal amount of food.
But getting back from New Jersey, you didn't go to the store because, again, this is where you're managing your disease. You were conserving your energy because you were tired, and we were just
I was sick.
Yeah, you were sick. It's like, let's eat the food we have. Well, the food we had started to dwindle, and we didn't have much of anything, and
when I'm sick, because I still had my cold, my hands, which you've all heard me complain about, multiple sclerosis has had its way with my hands and my arms. But when I'm sick, that just exaggerates like the problems. And I have trouble eating, and Dan would have to help me. So of course the logical choice was pizza.
Because in buying the pizza, you can get it delivered.
Which is good. You didn't have to leave the house.
You didn't have to leave the house, didn't have to cook. And in buying that, then, that's a 2-day supply. So we had enough for a meal on Saturday, and then another meal on Sunday. Obviously, we eat more than just one meal a day, but as far as a major big meal...
Yes, and maybe potentially we're enabling ourselves a little bit. We could have made something a little more healthy. but it was easy, and Dan didn't have to really stress himself.
Well, and those are the things that you have to look at because, and you know it, I know it. When we're together like that, we can cook, but I'm the one that has to do all the cleanup. I mean, because
Yes.
you're not able to get things in the dishwasher and stuff. So those are just things that I have to do. But that's where it's key in caregiving relationships is that you both are on the same page and communicate and know what the other person is dealing with.
And like you were saying about putting the puzzle pieces together, that was forward thinking of you to say, okay, I don't feel well today, so I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to order pizza. We're just not going to go out and do anything. But then tomorrow I may not be feeling well, so I'm going to have some leftovers, some easy to prepare food. And that really satisfied us, and that I want to say pizza, is awful as it may sound, and let's be honest, I'm not perfect. I don't think a lot of us are when it comes to food choices. But, that was comfort, and that was, Dan didn't feel well, and it was just something that he actually could taste, and he wasn't opposed to just having a comfort meal. So we did that, and we took it easy, and we watched TV, and we just really rested.
And that's part of that self-care is the rest. And I mean, that's where the question is then when you're living with multiple sclerosis, it's like, how do you know when to stop? You talk about the window being open. How do you know when it's too much? And how do you know? Because we need to continue to push ourselves because, certainly there are days you don't feel like doing anything. And so it's like, but at the same time, I don't feel like doing much any day.
No, but we have a calendar on our dining room table. It is a monthly calendar where you can see everything that we have to do. So on Saturday, when we have the family reunion that we can go to, we make the logical choice to stay home. Sunday, we're still watching TV, just resting. Because we know we need to have some gas in our tank. Like, figuratively speaking, our body being the engine. We need to have some gas in that tank because Dan has to work Monday. I have some commitments. And so I think that that's how we knew when to stop. So that we would have enough to get going next week, wouldn't you say?
Well, and I think that's the big thing too is obviously looking at today, and I know that that's where there's always this question, or it's easy to get overwhelmed when you think of everything that you have to do, and I know I'm guilty of it, you're guilty of it, and if I like to rein things in. It's just like, okay, I know we have this, and this to do.
Right.
But the question is, what has to get done today? What do we have to do today? Because I think that helps to prioritize things, especially in dealing with, this messy MS life. And it's just, I think life can be overwhelming whether or not you have MS.
Absolutely. And I think for me personally, one of the things that I can do when I feel overwhelmed, and it sounds silly, is just make a list of what I have to do. And, like you said, Dan, prioritize potentially. This doesn't have to happen today. But I feel more in control of this messy life if I have some semblance of order, like I need to do this, and it doesn't overwhelm me as much. If I name it and say, okay, I'm going to do this, and I don't have to put like a time limit or anything on that. I just have to make myself know that as silly as it sounds, I have to make myself aware of what I need to get done. And then I always think of my dear friend Nora, and in 5 years will it matter? So when I'm overwhelmed sometimes and I think, oh God, I need to clean this part of the kitchen, or I need to do this outside, and if it doesn't happen, will it matter in 5 years? So sometimes, you just cut yourself some slack. But just to organize it and to make a list and to prioritize it really helps me so that I don't feel as overwhelmed by my messy life.
Well, and that's because I have all these ambitions and goals. I've said, how many times this, yesterday, today, and probably tomorrow. I keep saying, okay, I need to get up early tomorrow morning and cut my hair. That's the priority. That's what I need to do. I have to cut my hair, but it's really easy come 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning when the alarm goes off. It's like, well, do I really have to cut my hair? So then it's just like, don't put the pressure on yourself to do more than you need to or have to.
Yeah, because I mean, let's be honest, you're still a little raspy voice and you still sneeze and cough, and it's like if you can sleep for an extra half hour, 40 minutes so you don't have to cut your hair, I think everyone would understand that. Cut yourself some slack and just enjoy or get the rest, because that is, like you said, self-care where you are preserving your own health.
And that's always the big thing. It's like whether or not I have bushy hair is not is a moot point if I'm sick.
Yeah, if you're sick and your hands feel, if your hands are a lot worse because you got up and you cut your hair and so you're now really tired at noon and then you're not able to type at work, it's like you need to have the foresight to think ahead, like what is in my day, what's in my schedule, so that you can compensate or you can plan for that.
And I think when you talk about planning and the making a list and everything, that way it keeps you in check. But at the same time, I think that's a big thing in terms of like weeding out this puzzle, is like, don't put undue pressure on yourself. And I think, in terms of like prioritizing, so it's just like, there's less pressure on me now, tonight, because I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't need to get up quite so early tomorrow, so it's not so pressing we get to bed right now.
Right, and I agree with that. And I also, you said something, excuse me, when I was thinking back of getting a drink in New Jersey. Kind of that idea of, yes, we went and we had a fantastic time, but that was just a really good moment, and what will I regret more tomorrow? Having the drink and being tired, or not staying up a little extra late, and so I don't have that memory. So I think maybe not that is the perfect example, but just think about what will you regret more? Pushing yourself too far or not pushing yourself enough? And I think that's a question we all need to examine and do a little self-reflection. Because Dan always talks about, you need to push yourself. But don't push yourself too far, and
that's the balancing act. And I think, as we talked earlier about like, oh, blah, 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 and I've had MS for 20 years. I know what I'm doing. But it's just the reality is, over 20 years into it, we still have questions. We still do not know, finding that balance between self-care, preserving energy, pushing yourself, doing things, living without regrets. Because obviously, if we would have gone out for, and it's for example, but gone out for that drink, woke up the next morning and been really, really, really tired, we would have regretted going out. But we knew it was like a drink and it was there, over, quick, and done, just to have that experience. And so we did it and we had fun. I think obviously if we would have stayed for 2 or 3 and only gotten 2 hours of sleep, that's just irresponsible.
And that comes with the territory. You get to know your body. Living with the disease for 20 years, you know how hard you can push yourself. And unfortunately, but if we're perfectly honest, I think we both knew that we'd pay for taking this trip. We didn't plan on getting a cold, but we knew we would be tired when we came back and that we would have to take it easy. Sickness kind of added a little extra to the self-care that we needed to do, but we knew we were going to pay a little bit. And that's kind of the balancing act that you talked about with living with multiple sclerosis.
And I think that those are the times too that knowing we were going to be tired, it was going to take a lot out of us. I always think, well, at least I know going into it. So when I feel tired tomorrow, when I'm run down and everything, I know it was worth it. Or it's just like I've got the memory and know that it was my fault, that I pushed myself too far, and it wasn't because nothing would have been worse had we sat and went to sleep, gotten our sleep and everything, and felt run down anyway. And and then it's blaming the MS.
Yes, and so I think that making sense of a messy life, hopefully we gave you some tools, make lists and focus on what you will regret or won't regret, and just trying to get a sense of what's important to you and how you can handle it. What sort of forward thinking can you do, and what tools can you use? And certainly always kind of remember and rely on your partner, your caregiver, your I don't know,
significant other, your everyone. I mean, your
family,
care
your
team,
friends,
people that are there to help you. And it's just always the balancing act, pushing yourself but pacing yourself all at the same time. There's no book or no rules for that. That's something that you have to figure out on your own through trial and error, and seeing what works for you. So yeah, but I'm feeling better. You're feeling better.
I am, thankfully. And that's again part of the trial and error, that you figure out living with the disease for long enough where you realize when you're better.
So thank you again for joining us here today on A Couple Takes on MS. This is Dan and Jennifer Digman. Thanks to Blue Giraffe Kid for composing the theme music to our show, and to the MS&Me Radio Network for having us. Check us out online at danandjenniferdigman.com and on Twitter at DanJenDig. Take care.